So, ladies and gentlemen, the verdict came down in recent hours. Tammy Lynn Sytch, better known as Sunny in WWE, will be spending the next 17 years in prison. Now, according to Frank Fernandez of the Daytona Beach News Journal, the Hall of Famer will also get 8 years probation for a deadly crash and she was driving drunk. Now, Assistant State Attorney Ashley Terwilliger sought the maximum penalty of 25 years in prison for Sytch, whom they have called a dangerous society for repeated offenses. Sytch's attorneys argued she has mental health issues, which he said make a much lower sentence more appropriate according to court records. Sytch, who is now 50, pled no contest on August 26th of this year to one count of DUI manslaughter, driving while the license was suspended with death, 4 counts of DUI with damage to person, and 2 counts of DUI with damage to property. Circuit Judge Karen Foxman adjudicated Sytch guilty and sentenced her to 17 years in prison, followed by the 8 years probation, during which she must meet conditions, including a substance abuse evaluation. Sytch also received credit for more than 1 year she has served in the Valencia County Branch Jail. Now, Foxman denied the defense request for a downward departure, meaning a sentence below the state guideline minimum, about 10.5 years in prison. Now, Foxman said the facts of the case are fairly egregious, saying how Sytch admitted to drinking vodka and an open bottle of vodka was found in the car. Now, Sytch was driving sedan on March 25, 2022, which crashed into a vehicle driven by Julian Fran Lassiter, who was stopped at a red light in a 100 block of North Young Street in Ormond Beach. Lassiter died from his injuries. Lassiter's vehicle was pushed into another. Now, Sytch's blood alcohol content was between 0.32 and 0.36, just less than an hour after the crash, according to records. This is 4 times the legal limit of 0.08, at which point a person is considered legally intoxicated. Sytch's blood also showed signs of marijuana use. She told police at the hospital she was unaware that she had been in a crash. She remembered making leftover burritos in her kitchen, that she had drunk some vodka, but she could not say how much she drank, record showed. Now, in her court appearance, she stood before the judge and asked for another chance. She said that when she was 16, she wanted to be a doctor and mentioned how doctors take an oath to do no harm. She said she did the opposite on the day of the fatal crash and brought harm to another person. Now, she listed some of the positives she has done in her life, bringing happiness to people through entertainment. I made terminally ill children's wishes come true through the Make-A-Wish Foundation, he said. I have done something horrible by much more than the worst that I have done. She said that when she lost her father to heart disease when she was 20, it caused problems in her personal life, and she said her 87-year-old mother died while she was in the Valencia County Branch Jail. I never got to say goodbye to her, and I didn't get to say goodbye to her beloved family member, Sytch said of Lassiter's family. At one point, she turned and apologized to Lassiter's family sitting in a gallery. She said she wished she could change places with Lassiter. If I could bring him back and take his place, I would in an instant, Sytch said. She said she believes the death of her fiancé, the great wrestler Chris Candido, in 2005, and being able to help him started her downfall. What followed was a huge trend of mistakes that I should have learned from, she said. She said she could make a difference by helping to educate people about the dangers of drinking and driving, as well as the dangers of not properly treating a mental illness. A precious life was lost that tragic day, and I'm so incredibly sorry for that, she said. I would ask her to give me the opportunity to atone for what I have done, and then to be released to society to contribute to it in the most positive way possible. Now, early in the proceeding, her Lassiter's younger brother, Kenneth, spoke. Kenneth Lassiter said their father died when he was 15, and his brother, who was 5 years older, stepped in and became the father figure. He said all the residents of the condominium in Daytona Beach Shores, where Julian Lassiter lived, said he was a great guy. Everyone spoke highly of him, Kenneth said. Lassiter's daughter, Whitney Lassiter Hill, spoke of the tremendous grief of losing her dad. She said no one should ever have the experience of a police officer coming to the door at 2 a.m. to tell them that their father was killed in a car crash. It changed everything to find out that my dad, our rock, was no longer with us, she said. He was my world. He was the most positive person. He loved life, and he was a man of God. He was my biggest cheerleader. She said when she was a little girl, her father would wake her up and say, "It's going to be a great day today," and he would play James Brown's "I Feel Good." In later years, he would call her, send an email, and tell her he was proud of her. She said her father was an avid University of Florida fan and had served as Gator Club president in Daytona Beach. She said her father owned a couple of recovery houses and would work to help the tenants of those houses overcome the addictions. He also served on the board of the Halifax Urban Ministries, helping the homeless. She said he was healthy and had big plans for the next 25 years of his life. She said her children could have been in the car with their grandparent that day. Both family members asked for the maximum prison time for Sytch. Now, Sytch's defense attorney, Assistant PD Jessica Roberts, presented testimony from John Fabier, a psychologist who testified that Sytch had suffered some traumatic events in her life, including the death of her father and the 2000 death of former pro wrestler Candido. Sytch had an approximately 15-year-long relationship with Candido, Fabier said. Sytch also lost a niece who died in a car crash, said Fabier. Fabier also testified that Sytch had been in a number of relationships during which she had been a victim of abuse. She had been in a relationship with a police officer in the Northeast, who she said better. She said she also been a subject of abuse from her boyfriend at the time of the crash. Fabienne did not identify the boyfriend by name, but James Penty previously said he was her boyfriend at the time of the crash. Penty walked out of the courtroom soon after the testimony. Now, Fabienne said Sytch would respond to the chaos and failed relationships by self-medicating with alcohol. He testified that he diagnosed Sytch with depression and also finds signs of bipolar disorder. He also said her brain's executive function, which makes and decisions and controls impulses, was impaired. During cross-examination, Assistant State Attorney Helen Schwartz asked whether these problems were self-reported by Sytch. Fabian said yes, but he also said there was a report from a medical facility in 2014 noting depression. Schwartz also asked whether being in jail, facing a long prison sentence, gaining weight, and losing her fan base and freedom could make Sytch depressed, and Fabian said it could. Assistant Public Defender Larry Avalone, who also represents Sytch, called Dr. Jeffrey Danziger, who said he believed Sytch was bipolar. He said one reason he believed that was because medications intended to treat her depression were not helping. Danziger also testified that Sytch had a very serious alcohol abuse disorder. He testified that addiction to alcohol was not a choice by the addicted person. Now, Danziger said that Sytch continued drinking despite suffering from pancreatitis due to alcohol use and also being arrested for driving under influence before the fatal crash, for which he was sentenced in court. During the argument portion of the sentencing, Assistant PD Avalone said that Sytch had shown remorse and had done good in her life despite her problems. He said she had an undiagnosed mental illness. He asked for leniency from the judge. Now, Terwilliger asked that Sytch received a maximum sentence, pointing to her repeated violations of the law. She said in a span of 1 month in Pennsylvania in 2015, for example, Sytch had been arrested 3 times for drunk driving. So, ladies and gentlemen, we provide this information not to exploit the case, but just to give basic information of her appearance in court. All I can say as a fan of Sonny and a fan of Chris Candido, it's very, very unfortunate for everybody involved this had occurred. Sytch could be still an active force in wrestling, and she was basically one of the first what he called internet sensations in wrestling history. I think at one point she was the most downloaded WWE female star of her era. And it just, like I said, it's heavily unfortunate. When you mix mental illness with alcohol abuse and, not enough help for a situation, bad things will happen. I lost my mother to a joyrider. One of my uncles was killed by a drunk driver. Like I said, things occur when negatives occur in one person or the series of events. I wish life was different. I know Sonny still has a lot of fans maybe listening to this podcast. I'm not judging anybody, but like I said, if she did the crime, she has to pay the price for doing that, and hopefully she'll get help in prison, and the family of the deceased, the person she killed, maybe the family can have some peace and closure. But when you lose a family member to a car accident like this, it's there's no closure, there's just coping. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you like what we're doing with our wrestling podcast, give us a like, comment, subscribe, or share. Again, I'm not leaving a comment section open on this one for obvious reasons. Let you, digest the information and speak amongst yourselves and say a prayer for everybody involved. Thanks for listening. Bye.